Hello, my juicy co-creators, Lilu here. Today I'm in Seattle on this beautiful, magnificent Juicy Living Tour, 12 months tour around the US, and this time I'm with Dr. Pat.
This is great. I'm
this is
thrilled.
awesome.
I'm totally jazzed. I'm a little nervous. I'm usually on the other side of this, but I'm so thrilled to see you again. Oh my gosh, it's great.
And thank you for accepting to being interviewed, because usually you interview people.
You know, I'm starting to get out more.
Good.
Yeah, it is good.
I'm glad, because you have a lot of wisdom to share, haven't you?
And I have fun. I mean, I'm starting to really talk about the things that, you know, are part of my journey. And people have been asking, the listeners have been asking. And, it's great when you can talk about, like, as you did earlier with me, it's great when you could talk about things that were challenges in your life. Mm-hmm. You know, like for me, losing job, and then to see how that turns into getting you where you are, like you shared. And it's inspiring for people, and I'm thrilled to be able to do that now.
Yeah, because right now we're standing in one of the most high-tech studios around the country.
Isn't this the coolest place to come?
This is really, really awesome.
Tell everybody about the view. Maybe at the end you could take a shot of the view.
I will. The whole view on the Seattle and Bellevue, and it's this beautiful, beautiful area.
Yeah.
But when I'm really
that is the city of Seattle right there, right there, those buildings. Just so you know, that's Seattle.
Oh, it is beautiful.
Amazing.
Great area, beautiful. And you are magnificent, and you're here, standing here today and interviewing and amazing people and doing all those shows, but that hasn't always been the case.
No.
You were telling me earlier how when you were 17, you were actually in your car.
Absolutely. I mean, I actually started to share this, you know, upon launching my own network, Transformation Talk Radio, last year. I wanted to share some of these stories because we created a website called calltoconnection.com. It's all about paying forward in gifts. And people ask me, you know, how did you, did you just like pop out? And so I was able to share things with people. Being homeless at 17, and I share a story on, you know, how a guy at the Greenbrook Motel, you know, gave me a room after staying in my car for a number of days. I was desperate, and I walked over there, and I pulled up, and I was crying, and I was dirty, and I was a mess, and I said, I have no place to stay. I need a place to stay, and I said, I'm going to get a job in a couple of weeks. By the way, I had not gotten that confirmed, but I did apply for a job. And he didn't say anything to me, Lilu. He grabbed the keys and handed them to me. And I ended up staying there a month. And I did get that job, working for the telephone company. And I worked at the telephone company for 25 years before it was time for me to leave. And, you know, actually they had to ask me to leave. But that was, you know, these are pivotal points in your life. Yeah. These are pivotal moments. You know, I now call them epic moments because they are moments where you get to decide what you're going to be made of, so to speak. You know, and I love that life is full of those. And now I'm getting a little bit smarter at seeing them for what they are and not for what they're not, you know. So it's been an interesting journey.
I love how you really, you know, walk your talk, and you're interviewing all those amazing people, but really your life is really unfolding magnificently. And one of the proof here is this beautiful heart that you just gave me, because Dr. Pat just interviewed me on her radio show.
Yes.
And gave me this wonderful gift of a heart here. I don't know if you can see, with those two wings.
Yeah.
But this was not, you didn't just pick that up in a store.
No.
This is actually something that you own.
It was very important to me, you know, and
what does that represent, or what did that represent for you for many years?
I will tell you what that represents. Boy, I'm just going to cry for a minute, but
and get closer to me. Don't get
okay, well, I forget where I'm. This is a video. I'm so used to nobody seeing me. Let me tell you what it represents for me. You know, I mentioned briefly 25 years working for the same company, and the reason I had to leave that job is because I was the head of human resources. And I was supposed to implement a downsizing program. I could not do it. I could not look you in the eye and say to you, you're fired. You who are 1 month, you're 1 month away from a full pension. I couldn't do it. So my soul started to be gnawed at. I had no idea that that moment, you know, that pivotal epic moment for me where I had to make a decision to become a maverick would get me where I am today. But I'll tell you about this heart. You know, I started radio in 2003, very surprising. I had no intention to be on radio. I didn't even know what radio was. And shortly thereafter, in April 1st of 2004, I got very sick, very sick. And it was a mystery disease. And I made a decision that I was going to continue to pay for radio out of my pocket. I knew nothing about it. I didn't have anybody to help me understand about sponsorships or advertising. But you know when you know something, Lila, you know when you just know. You just know. But everybody around you thinks you lost your mind. You know, and they're like, what are you doing? But what happened for me was that this heart was given to me. And what it represented for the person that gave it to me was having the courage to do something that I was doing. That in 2004, just want to tell everybody, if you don't remember, there was no real iPod. There wasn't. I mean, honestly, this is like a whole video YouTube thing. Forget it. You know, there wasn't that existed then, right?
Yeah.
And the illness that I had and had right up until recently, right, would kill me. And so they gave me this heart to remind me to never, ever compromise what my heart is telling me to do or say. And that's what I love about you. You are uncompromised. You are all about sharing the love of others. And that's why I wanted to give this to you, because it will remind you in those moments, and in my case, in those moments where you wake up and you think, I can't do this anymore. You know, I don't know how I'm going to pay for another radio show. You know, I don't know how I'm going to do that. And your heart will be the place that you go to remind you of something much bigger than yourself. Epic, actually. Really. Because that's the energy right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have a very strong leadership, pioneer, cutting edge. I'm going there and I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I do.
You do?
Yeah. I'm from the Bronx.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you have to give up to make this happen?
I had to give up what everybody thought I should do. I had to give up all of the things that, when you put them on paper, you know, finished a PhD, and that's a whole story in itself. Honestly, people, you know, refer to me as Dr. Pat. Well, the listeners call me Dr. Pat. They started that a couple of years ago. I changed the name of the show to the Dr. Pat Show because that's the way that happened. But I didn't go back to school to just get a credential. You know, I come from a very poor family. I'm the only one in my family to graduate high school. And I delivered mail on that job that I got, that when I was, you know, at the Greenbrook Motel. I got a job with AT&T and I was delivering mail. So I'm one of these people that worked their way up in the corporate ladder. But I would deliver mail, and I was the longest person to ever have a mail run. And I would deliver mail to these most incredible people. Everyone I delivered mail to had a PhD on the end of it, on the end of their names. So I delivered mail to the guy that discovered the Big Bang, Arno Penzias. I delivered mail to some of the most incredible scientists of our time. I didn't know it at the time. They taught me how to play table tennis. I actually became a New Jersey champion. But here's what I got. 23 years old, I turned to my best friend, you know, after 5 years or so in the system, and I said, yeah, Linda, I'm going to get a PhD. And she said to me, of course you are. And I said, now what exactly is a PhD? But the point being, I knew that when my job ended I had to write and research about what is happening to people losing their job. So I began on this journey. You know, as my boss is firing me, I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I need to call Columbia University because I have a 2-year registration. I wonder if they'll still take me. And as she's like firing me and security's taking me out of the building and all of that, all I could think about is getting to Columbia. I had 45 minutes to get across the George Washington Bridge. Unheard of. Got in my car, got over there just in time to register. And that began this journey. And I took this education as a way for me to uncover what it means to keep promises. My research, my dissertation, one of the words based on that.
Complete things.
Complete things. What does it mean to keep promises to oneself as well as another? Because when we make promises to ourselves and we don't keep them, it's as devastating as if we would have made a promise to our 5-year-old son or daughter and didn't keep it. And right now, I believe humanity is being asked to step up and keep the promises that we've made, the ancient promises of oneness, the ancient promises of honoring the earth, those promises that we made when we came here, you see? And we're being asked to remember them and to come together and support each other and remember that there is a place that every single person on this planet can go to be fulfilled.
How would you describe your role here on the planet, or if your soul really came here to do one thing? How would you describe that?
Every time I answer that question, the universe gives me something else to do. I think the way that I look at my life now is I'm so grateful that I'm even here sitting in a chair being able to talk with you. Because if you would have seen me last year, or 18 months ago, I wasn't sure if I was going to be in a wheelchair or not. So, for me, there is a purpose that I believe I have to bring a new, fresh form of talk radio to people. You know, a new mainstream in talk radio. I mean, this seems to be my, at the moment. And then also, to share some of the things that I think I've gone through to help people realize that it is in those really dark moments, if you can be with yourself in your heart, you will hear the voice of wisdom every time. Not just when things are juicy and flowing and we're having a great time, but even in those dark moments. You know, the laws of the universe, the creator, whatever that means to you listening, is reaching out.
How do you go by choosing your guests? Because you receive hundreds and hundreds of requests.
You know,
if not thousands. 4,000 shows you have?
I wake up some days. I have over 4,000 shows. I wake up some days and I drive everybody on our team crazy because I wake up and I get an idea. But I have a great team of people, and I want to stop and say that. You know, you're interviewing me, but I want to tell you behind me. Actually, above me, I have some great people. You know, I have Linda, I have Kim, you know, Kamisha, Andy, Michelle,
Mike,
Catherine, Stephanie, Mike, Benny. I could go on. You know, Tacey Trump, who is actually the woman that gave me my first hour radio show. Because I actually transposed an 800 number. I dialed a wrong number, but I didn't hang up.
How hilarious.
It's a riot.
Universes.
2003. I transpose all sorts of numbers. So 2003, 800 number transpose. It called into Voice America. Voice America, one of the first internet talk radio networks. Right? I was looking for a man named Tracy. They sent me to a producer named Tacey. Is that like even a name?
This is tasty.
This is tasty. And within 10 minutes, I pulled out my credit card and I bought my first hour of radio. 3 months later, 5 days a week, opened up at this station here, KKNW AM 1150. I was offered 5 days a week. I just kept saying yes. And that's what I'm learning now. And if there's anything I could help people with, it's it's helping them see the power of yes.
Mm-hmm. So how do you say yes versus no to some of the things? Because we do have to say no. You have to choose your guest. You have to choose the conversations you're going to bring on.
I don't think I ever choose anything.
Okay.
I don't.
Bring it on.
I don't. You know, honestly, I'm not guiding the ship. Last year we launched Transformation Talk Radio. That was such an anomaly. I could not have, if you and I were to sit down and put a business plan together to do that, it could have never happened the way it happened. I was actually helping my friend launch his radio station at WBOQ in Rhode Island. And for whatever reason, he couldn't do it and he disappeared. And the station manager called me and said, do you want to launch a network? And what did I say? Yes. I had no knowledge of doing that. I had no website. Didn't know what I was going to call it. I didn't have a technician to run the sound. And so all I did was call Mary, my website designer, and I said, you know what? We're going to launch Transformation Talk Radio and the Transformation Network, and it's going to be purple. And everyone around me kind of did the same thing that they usually do. That's just kind of shake your head. It's like, oh. How did it happen? Uh-huh. I prayed for a technician that knew how to do all this. Oliver in Germany shows up. Because I was looking for a technician. I saw the flag of Germany, and I thought, wow, those cool colors. And I sent him an email. And so here we are now. You hear it. We all hear it. Do you know what I'm saying? We yes. hear that. The voice that comes to, I think, me and others is the voice of hope, the voice of faith, the voice of abundance, the voice of forgiving, and the voice of gratitude. And I think any other voice that you hear is simply the judge inside all of us.
That's distracting us.
It wants us to stay small. Mm-hmm. It wants us to play not to lose. It doesn't want us to play to win. And yet we're here to contribute mm-hmm. to people, to the planet. That's it. That's what we're here for. We're here to learn from each other, and we're here to explore the depth of human kindness. Anything else is not negotiable.
Beautifully said. This is so juicy. And so where are you now opening up to? I mean, where do you take it from here when you have done so many shows and hours and people are calling in?
I have some great coaches.
You're creating bigger and bigger?
Well, first of all, I love what I do. I just absolutely love it. I mean, you asked me how I get the guests. Well, here's an example. One of my all-time favorite songs is a song by Juice Newton. It's called The Sweetest Thing. That's her song. I woke up one day and I said, oh my God, I've got to interview Juice Newton. Now nobody's interviewing Juice Newton. And whatever it was, we put it all together. I found out that the man who wrote that song, who had been traveling with Juice for 30 years, passed away. We did a dedication. Here's what I'm praying for myself. I'm praying that I get better at following my heart. You know, I'm praying that every day I wake up and people ask me, how long do you meditate? And, you know, no, I'm from New York. Chop, chop, chop. Exactly. So the practice that I developed for myself, and it's not for everybody, I wake up every day and I ask a very simple question. I ask, God, what is mine to do today? And then I go do it. Because almost always I'll hear an immediate answer. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes if I go to try to do it and it doesn't work out, I come back and I say, now listen, I've tried to do this and it's not working out. What is mine to do today? And I'll hear the same thing. So for me, it's time for me to get out in public more. I'm writing a book series because what I've discovered in sharing this and sharing my story is that we are meant to live epic lives. Mm-hmm. Now, I have science to prove this. You know, back in the, 60s or 70s, you remember that book, I'm Okay, You're Okay?
No.
There's a book, I'm okay, you're okay. Yeah, I don't think you were born yet, but there was a book. I'm okay, you're okay. Okay was what everybody was looking for. I'm okay, you're okay. Okay, you're okay. Right? We went through that. Then we went from okay not being good enough. It's not okay to be okay. Now you have to be good. So good became the new okay. Right? Then we went into the 80s and so forth, and good wasn't good enough. You had to be great. Everything in our pop culture said you have to be great. All of the books that were written, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, oh, it's great, you gotta be great, you gotta be great, great, great. Right? All the movies were great. It was great. Then, great became the new good. You know, like 60 is the new 40. Right? Then we went on, and it was like great got to be unfashionable. Then it became phenomenal. You have to be phenomenal. Everything's phenomenal. You know, buy this, it's phenomenal. So phenomenal took the place of great. But with one thing in mind, when we hit this decade that we're in now, 2010, epic has become the new phenomenal. Now, how do we know this? There's evidence. You can't just do a movie anymore. Hollywood can't do a movie anymore that's just great. It has to be epic. It has to be Avatar. It has set the bar. It has to be in 3D.
How do you define epic?
You know, to me, I love the acronym. I love epic. Epic is 4 things to me. It's excellence, it's perseverance, it's intuition, and it's creativity. EPIC. That's what it is to me. When you put all those together and you move from that place that is so faith-based, then you allow for everything that the universe has to offer. And you said something really interesting when I was interviewing you. What you indicated was we don't need to want, we don't need to desire, we need to receive. You know, it's really difficult for us to put into words the kind of energy that's going on. You know, clearly the bar has been raised. It's been raised for all of us. And it's not been raised for us to earn more money, to get greedy, to get more greedy. That is not what's happening here. You know, it's really been raised for us to ask ourselves, am I doing enough? I mean, that was the question I asked myself last year. I've been doing the Dr. Pat Show, very successful, and I asked myself, am I doing enough? And the answer I heard was, no, you're not. And
is that really the question, though?
That was my question.
Is that really about doing more now?
The question I asked last year was, am I doing enough? And the reason it came up for me was because, you know, we had been involved in getting water to Haiti and this, and, you know, just so many things we were involved in. And I just felt that there was more I could do, but I didn't know what it was. So when I asked that question, the answer I got, of course, do calltoconnection.com, give away more, launch the Transformation Network. And so then again, you know, how do I take my message? How do I do that? And so everyone around me, in a short period of time this year, my friends and coaches said, where's your book? Where's your book? You know, you interview all these people. Are you writing a book? You know, why don't you write a book? You know, why aren't you out speaking? You know, it was so forth and so on. And what I said was, at the time, I hadn't found anything that inspired me more than I'm inspired by radio, so that I can inspire the people. I was doing 30 hours of live radio from the floor of the Northwest Women's Show. We were doing a global prosperity campaign. I interviewed people all over the world. John DeMartini joined me from South Africa. I mean, it was amazing. And I was in the middle of an interview, and I just started to get this download. I don't know how else to describe it. And it was all about imagining epic. You know, imagining an epic life, imagining an epic world, you know, imagining epic relationships. It was an entire series, and that's what my book is about. And, you know, because when I think of my life, the one thing that comes to mind is no matter where I've been, what I've been doing, whether I'm living in my car, I had never given up the idea that I could do better. You know, my stepmother taught me the power of perseverance. Amazing woman. She had her first child at 12 and her second at 13. And down south. And she taught me by her example on what's possible. So this is a woman, graduated, 4th grade, 5th grade education. Had these children, married my dad, went on to get her GED, went on to get her certificate for banking, went on to get a real estate license in Florida, went on to get her brokerage license in Florida. And I remember calling my mom and saying, Mom, how you doing? How'd you do on that real estate test? And she'd say, oh, honey, you know, I missed that by 1 point. And I would think to myself, oh my God, I'm like crying for her. And she said, I'm going to go to bingo. Took herself to bingo. 2 months later, she took the test again. I said, Mom, how'd you do in the test? She said, that darn 1 point come back to me, and just, I'll get it next time. Took the test again. 3rd time, she passed the test. Real estate, selling condominiums. 2 months later, Hurricane Andrew came in, southern Florida, wiped the entire state out. I said to my mom, Mom, how you doing? And she was living in a trailer outside my brother's house. My brother had a house that was built in stone so it didn't blow down, but everything else was flattened. Anybody that remembers that hurricane. And so I said, well, Mom, you know, we can come get you and we'll move you, and, you know. She said, oh, no, I can't move, honey. And I said, well, what do you mean you can't move? She said, I can't move. Now I know why the good Lord gave me that real estate license. And I'm thinking there's nothing there. She said, I'm going to help these people get their homes again. That's where she stayed until she passed. That's what she did. And when you live with somebody that has that kind of influence on you, there's something that gets in your DNA and your cells. And once you get that in your cells, you can't turn back. You know, whether you get a Hurricane Andrew that comes through your life or a Hurricane Katrina, you lose your job, you get sick. I mean, I have been down the range, you know, homeless, been fired from every job I've ever had, right? Got an illness that nobody could figure out, that could kill you when you're sleeping. 14-year relationship ends, and you sometimes have to say it isn't about any of that. Are you doing enough? Are you doing enough? Are you helping another person in the way that you could? Are you smiling at that homeless? I mean, I give homeless people money. You know, what is it about your life? Are you taking a few extra minutes with your kids?
Yeah, your what mom? Really matters, like Neil Donald Walsh said, you know, are you really doing what matters?
Exactly.
Now it's time to do that, because 95% of people or 90% of people are not. We're doing just things automatically without being conscious.
What I want to
with our heart.
What I want to say to folks about this is the following: it's different for everybody. If you'd have met me 20 years ago, and we were having this conversation. You know, and we were talking about doing that next best thing. That next best thing probably would have been for me getting off the couch. And what I want to say is, for the people listening to this, you have to honor where you are in this moment. You have to honor that. You know, I have sold hot dogs from a hot dog cart. I've cleaned fish. And I will tell you, you can have joy in slapping that mustard on that hot dog just as much as you could have taken a trip in Florida. And so what the message is, and what my book is about and all of that, is that you meet yourself where you are, without judgment. But meet yourself in the moment and ask yourself the question, do I love myself enough to say that and mean it? Do I love my life enough to spread some joy, even if it is for 60 seconds? What can I do differently in my life that will show human kindness to another person, another place, or another thing? What can I do? It doesn't cost anything. And I think it's time for us to challenge ourselves in those way, in that way.
And it's not a numbers game, because I read this quote like this morning as we were doing a meetup here in Seattle, and there was on this card saying something to the extent that your happiness depends on how many people you serve and help. And is that really a numbers game, or is that true? I didn't feel that.
That's not what I'm saying. Well, for me,
really bringing in the joy, isn't it, and the heart into the labor somehow, which is not turning out into being a labor.
So one of my mentors said to me, "If you're counting, you definitely are not doing enough." And I get what she was saying. You know, what she was saying is, you know, you're doing this for what? Because you think you should do it, or because your heart is pulling you to do it? If your heart is pulling you to do it, the heart is timeless. This gift, this is timeless. You know, the heart goes on beyond any of us. And you can, all of us, can take the moment. You can take the time. You could stop what you're doing. You could do something that is so different than your pattern. You can contribute some more. I'm not saying give money, do this, do that. But just ask yourself, what have I done for myself today? You know, what have I done to honor the dignity of the human spirit? And I think that's really, for me, what I'm learning. I really don't claim to be an expert in this. You know, I learned so much from the potholes that I've stepped in, right? I learned that, you know, always carry a ladder with you, because if you do step on a pothole, you want to be able to climb out.
Or take your wings.
Or take your wings. Because everyone right now has an unlimited ability to change their lives. And as you change your life, you change the world in a positive way. That's what the shows are about. That's what these fabulous hosts on Transformation Talk Radio are about. That's what, you know, my book is going to be about. It's about realizing you don't have to be James Cameron to have an epic movie, right? We get to create the epic movie of our lives every minute.
Very cool. Very cool. And I bet a lot of people want to meet you in person.
That's what they keep saying. Yes.
You know, we want to get Pat out of the studio.
Get Pat. Get to. Yeah.
Because you have a beautiful. I mean, there's this beautiful. You have a beautiful heart, and there's a beautiful connection with you, and
I love connecting.
That. Yes.
Yeah, I love.
Obviously.
We have the best listeners around. I mean, you know, we get callers from all over the country, and you know, I mean, we have some amazing hosts in the network, and it's a synergy, you know, and it's really beautiful. All we do as hosts is we show up and we do the best we can. That's what we do, and the listeners really do the heavy lifting. They're the people that hear something today or tomorrow and then go out and change the world.
Yeah, but yet we're all in this together, aren't we? Because there's really...
there's no separation.
It feels like in the Juicy Living Tour, it's all about really living every day. You know, it's everyday inspiration from everyday people, because we are all everyday people. We are all in this together.
Everyone that is listening to this or not has to remember what we all tend to forget. We really are all one. You know, we are all connected. we weren't meant to be individualistic. Otherwise, we would have been given our own planets. You would have had yours. I would have had mine. But we were put here to honor the earth, to honor each other, and to always remember that no one does it better than we do in terms of love and connection. It is mighty, mighty powerful, and it's very easy to do.
Well, this was so awesome meeting you.
That was great to meet
person.
you again. Yeah. Exactly.
I'm in her studio. Can you believe this? And I invite you to also listen to the interview. She interviewed me on about the Juicy Living Tour and some extraordinary things. So come and check it out. She's sitting here. I'm sitting there.
Right. And you'll be able to listen if they go to drpatlive.com or transformationtalkradio.com. They'll be able to find out when we're going to air that interview.
Yes.
But I know you're really quick. You take these videos and like you're bam, like right there.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's fun. And this is the juiciness of life.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Much love, my beautiful co-creators from Seattle, and we'll see you next time.
See you, everybody.
See ya.